right there. It even lights up. See that? It even lights up and it moves. That's the thing. You want to have movement, but then it starts to move a little too much. Like I like how the curtains move, and then that thing just starts to take off. We're having plumbing issues today at the house again. So we live on a hill, and
shit rolls downhill.
Yes, shit flows downhill. And so there was a shit smell in our house, kind of like a vague shit smell, not overwhelming, but like, hey, is that shit? And it was a sewer smell, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. So then we talked to our neighbor. Steph's very friendly. She talks to people. And I just try to do the hey. And so Steph knows everybody. And except the guy with the tree. Anyway, look at there it goes. Goes a little crazy, right? Like, but they were saying that they had a sewer smell, and I'm like, oh, this is so there's some kind of community sewer problem, and you know, all the pipes here are 100-year old or older.
You know, community sewer problem was my old band in college.
And so every once in a while, if I'm taking a shower upstairs, all of a sudden the sewer shit will just start coming out of.
In your shower?
I was taking a shower. That's why all that stuff happened.
It came out. Oh, I see. I thought you were saying that it happened in your shower.
No. When I take a shower, it runs downhill, and then all of a sudden the toilet will back up. Like all of a sudden, shit will start coming out of the toilet. And the shower
Shit's
down here
everywhere.
just starts coming out of the bathtub. Just starts coming up.
Okay.
like it's some kind of fucking earthquake movie.
It's like the Seth Rogen movie where the end of the world happened in L.A.
Yeah, it's like that.
The End, it was called.
There was another movie called The End, starring Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. Freaking hilarious.
Biggest laugh.
Some of the biggest laughs I've ever. They were a real duo, Dom DeLuise. Remember, they made a couple movies together. I think.
I know.
It was not a Cannonball Run. It was like a.
No,
it was about.
It was about.
Burt Reynolds committing suicide.
Burt Reynolds wanted to kill himself. He was depressed, and it was called The End. And he was going to end it. And one of the funniest scenes, he goes out in the ocean to drown himself. And he's way out there. He's like 100 or 200 yards out, you know? And then he realizes he wants to live. And he's like, oh, God, please, if you just let me get back to shore, I'll give you 80% of my earnings. And he's getting closer. He's getting closer. He's like, oh, I swear to God, I'm going to start giving you that 50% starting next month. I swear to God. And then as he gets to shore, he's like, honest to God, 10% starting in 6 months for the rest of my life. And I can chase. It was very funny. It was very funny. Hey, so what's happening? It's happening. U.S. agents begin arresting undocumented migrants in Chicago. Now, are they undocumented? I mean, or they're here illegally, and that's why they're undocumented. Oh, that's right. They're undocumented because they're here illegally. So I had this conversation with my good friend Aaron Mate, and he said, oh, no, they're undocumented migrants. And I'm like, now
they are documented because they have criminal records.
Yeah, so
that are documented here.
So they're going.
So now,
that's right.
You just wanted.
So they're actually what it seems like they're concentrating on, and which is what I predicted, is that they're going to close down the border, which they're doing. They're already sending the military to the border. Malcolm, could you find a video of that on Twitter of them sending the military, maybe even a short news report of them sending the Marines and those kind of planes where the props go like this instead of like that. And anyway, I'd like to show that. And I said that they would they would go after mostly criminals. People are afraid, oh, they're going to get rid of the farm workers. Believe me, Trump is not going to upset and rise everybody's grocery bills because he got rid of all the undocumented workers. That's not going to happen.
Criminal records. How about that?
He's going after the people that they know are criminals. That's what it seems like. That was my prediction. That's what it seems like. So here,
they're just committing the crimes Americans don't want to do.
That's right. So here we see some U.S. agents in Chicago breaking into someone's apartment just to get warm. Anyway, that's what's happening there. So here's one of the criminals they got. This guy's got a criminal record. He's from Haiti. So, and he's undocumented, meaning he's here illegally, and he's got a criminal record. So let's watch this.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
He's a gang member. So I don't think people could be against this, right?
It's so okay. I'm not against it all. However, these footage, like the clips from this, are so like perfect TV. Like the guy's going Biden forever.
Well, let's watch it first, and then we'll talk about it.
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Well, come on.
First of all, he doesn't sound Haitian. I'll tell you that.
He did a little bit. He's been here for a bit.
Yeah, okay.
Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Señor, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request was ignored because of sanctuary policies. And in a
So I just want to tell you the sanctuary city thing is BS, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. But Chicago and Brandon Johnson, the mayor, declared Chicago a sanctuary city. So then the Governor Abbott of Texas started sending them immigrants, undocumented immigrants, to Chicago. And then he's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" We're like, "Well, what do you mean? You said that you are a sanctuary city." And so then they spent $51 million. They allotted $51 million to take care of the undocumented migrants, and the black people in Chicago went berserk, as rightly they should, because they've been waiting for their piece of the pie for a long time, and all of a sudden they pulled $51 million out of their ass. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So the black people in Chicago are siding with Trump on this. Just so you know.
Of shifting priorities with the new Trump administration, this man, who was in the same apartment as the target, was also arrested after ICE determined he's also in the U.S. illegally. This is what ICE calls collateral.
So you guys got your main target just now, but you got somebody else. What just happened?
So our main target was released by a sanctuary jurisdiction, not honoring a detainer. That person was released back into the community, and when we went to go find him, he's with somebody else who was previously removed from the United States. So he's going to go today, too.
And that is exactly what Border Czar Tom Homan has warned would happen.
When we find the bad guy, he's probably with others that are in the United States illegally. They may not be a criminal priority, but we're not walking away from them.
ICE Boston says they will continue to go into sanctuary jurisdictions and do their job.
Today was a good day. Today we took several significant public safety threats out of our communities. Unfortunately, a lot were released by sanctuary policies, but we're here to tell the Commonwealth and the rest of the country that we're going to find them whether they're released or not.
And guys, shortly after we finished...
So that wasn't Chicago, that was Boston.
Filming, ICE Boston told us they arrested 2 more targets in other parts of town away from our camera.
show you the ropes.
President Biden's controversial migrant flights mass parole program. Well, they just picked him up yesterday because he's been arrested locally for sexual assault. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Malhusian, it was fascinating to watch all of that. I think I was just saying to Bill, this is terrible for Joe Biden and the legacy that he tried to leave behind. A question from me.
Did you get some whiter people to cover this story? Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, they got the guy with the supreme Uber hair, the ultimate
that's
good hair,
like out of a comic book hair, almost. Anyway,
yeah.
How soon will they actually be leaving the country? Does that take a long time?
It depends what country they're from. If they're from cooperable countries like El Salvador, Guatemala, countries like that, it can be quick. It can be within days or weeks. If it's countries that are harder to deport, countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much, it can go into a process of months. But the Trump administration is changing policies with something called expedited removal. The bottom line is people at home don't need to understand all the policies. The Trump administration is just going to work as fast as they can to get all the people you just saw on camera there out of the country as fast as possible. They're also going to use their State Department, now led by Marco Rubio, to put pressure on countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much when it comes to those deportations.
Bill, just two points of clarification here. It seems a lot of these crimes are associated with sex crimes. I'm just looking at the list a bit earlier today. I don't know if that generally is the case or not. And second, if Boston's a sanctuary city, how are they allowed to do this? Because we told there would be resistance.
Boston doesn't have to cooperate with ICE, but there's nothing they can do to stop ICE from coming into their city and enforcing the law. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And that's the point ICE makes to us is, look, they don't have to cooperate with our detainer requests. They don't have to tell our officers when they're releasing somebody from jail. But we're going to do our job. We have our intel guys out in the field. We have people with eyes all over the place, and we're going to snatch those guys. So they can make ICE's job more difficult, longer, and more dangerous, but it's not going to stop ICE from doing the job, guys. The bottom line is, ICE says it's safer for everybody involved if locals would just hand these guys over in jail once they're arrested, but they don't. They let them out onto the street. One of those targets is a previously deported Honduran illegal alien who was arrested.
Does Vanilla Ice know you're going to his barber? That's my question.
Look at that hair.
Yeah, Ice. He's talking about Vanilla Ice cracking down on immigrants.
Vanilla Ice, baby. Come on. Even Jackson Hinkle doesn't sport that big of a wave. You could surf off that thing. Are you kidding me?
It's a wave-a-lo.
Come on. What is that, a North Shore haircut? Come on.
For raping a woman while putting a gun in her mouth. The other target they got is a Haitian man who first flew into the United States in 2023 as part of President Biden's controversial migrant flights mass parole program. Well, they just picked him up yesterday because he's been arrested locally for sexual assault. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Malhusian, it was fascinating to watch all of that. I think I was just saying to Bill, this is terrible for Joe Biden and the legacy that he tried to leave behind. A question from.
And you know that he's serious when he's got police lights coming out of his eyes. That's. And so here,
Brandon eyes.
I just wanted to show you this. Here's Joe Biden in 2008. He was asked about sanctuary city policies, and can cities disregard the federal laws about immigration? And here's what he had to say about it.
Would you allow these cities to ignore the federal law regarding the reporting of illegal immigrants and, in fact, provide sanctuary to these immigrants?
The reason that cities ignore the federal law is the fact that there is no funding at the federal level to provide for the kind of enforcement at the federal level you need. Pick up the New York Times today. There's a city not far across the river from my state that imposed a similar sanctions. And what they found out is, as a consequence of that, their city went in the dumps, in the dumpster. Stores started closing. Everything started to happen. And they changed the policy. Part of the problem is you have to have a federal government that can enforce laws. This administration has been fundamentally derelict in not funding any of the requirements that are needed even to enforce the existing law.
So, Senator Biden, yes or no, would you allow the cities to ignore the federal law?
No.
Okay.
Okay. It's a long answer, but we got there. So Joe Biden, previous Joe Biden, was on board for this. In fact, emphatically. The operation targeted about 270 known criminals, according to television personality Dr. Phil, who was accompanying ICE officials and agents at their command center in Chicago and live streaming the events for his channel, Merit TV. Boy, I got to tell you. Anyway, I mean, you know, I know his agent couldn't get him rebooked on The View, but what kind of a phone call was that? I can't get you rebooked on The View, but do you want to go arrest some sex traffickers?
Hey,
Whoa.
remember when Steven Seagal had a comeback because he became sheriff of a Louisiana parish?
So Chicago has been on edge for more than a week after news outlets reported the administration's plans for raids, with fewer people venturing outside in heavily immigrant neighborhoods. Just under a fifth of Metro Chicago's population was born outside of the United States. That's according to the census. A grouping that includes people with immigration statuses ranging from naturalized citizens to undocumented. Well, how many of those fifth are naturalized and documented? That's my question.
Yeah, well, it's a range. It's a range from legal to not legal.
And how come Kamala didn't take care of this when she was border czar? And why was she the border czar in the first place? And also, why is it called a czar? Is Putin behind this? So is it just known criminals? If it's just known criminals, I'm okay with that, right? And or is it their entire families?
That's what it is.
Yeah.
If they cooperate, they'll just get the known criminals. If you make us do all the work, we're just going to find their families who are there with them.
Yes,
they can cooperate if they care so damn much. Okay, they can cooperate, but they don't want to. Because they're banking on people are going to feel worse for, like, you know, somebody puts a crying lady on CNN. They're not going to feel worse. The election was pretty clear. Mexicans
comprise the largest group born outside the United States, followed by people from India and Poland. That's in Chicago. A lot of there's more. The number one city for Polish people in the world is Warsaw, Poland. The number two, Chicago, Illinois. Did you know that? At least it was when I was a kid. That's why the Pope went there.
Capital.
You know, Jimmy, I think when you're talking about all of these immigrants that are coming to the country, who does this favor? Who ultimately is this?
Capital. This favors capital.
How so?
This favors corporations because it drives down wages and it divides people. And it makes it harder for workers to organize, all that stuff.
Don't forget trafficking. Don't forget the important trafficking. Drugs, people.
That's right.
He's like, why is it always a sex thing? It's also a drug thing. It's called trafficking.
So 52,000 immigrants have arrived in Chicago since August 2022, when Texas Governor Greg Abbott began busing people from the border to Chicago, among other Democrat-controlled cities, because they said they're sanctuary cities. As a sanctuary city since 1980s, Chicago has adopted policies that limit cooperation with the federal authorities to enforce immigration law. The city council voted this month to reject a proposal that would have weakened those protections. And believe me, the people in Chicago want to weaken those protections. And so the city council is not doing what the people of the city want. And the Chicago Transit Authority is displaying ads at trains and bus stations that direct riders to Know Your Rights websites, which lays out how interact with immigration authorities.
That's funny. Is that going to the ads that say, are you being trafficked? Those ads that are everywhere I go.
Holman has talked in recent months about collateral arrests, detaining undocumented people if they are in the presence of someone ICE has a warrant to arrest. That would violate a 2022 court settlement and could make residents of certain states who are detained in such warrantless arrests eligible for immediate release from custody. I don't understand that. So I guess there must have been some kind of settlement that circumvented the laws of immigration, and you could be here illegally, and if you get arrested for it, they have to let you go. I don't.
Yeah, it's malicious. It's not an accident. We think it's sanctuary cities were invented by Republicans in the first place. If you notice the Uniparty, that's why Dick Cheney liked Kamala, because it's one gang, and part of the gang scheme was to bring as many undocumenteds in here as possible for all the reasons that were mentioned before. And stick it in your face, too.
And stick it right in your face. On Sunday, Holman agreed when McGraw, also known as Dr. Phil, suggested that collateral arrests were the result of local authorities refusing to cooperate with ICE, prompting federal agents to make arrests in city neighborhoods. That's the game they want to play. Game on. We're going to do it. By the way, his full name is Dr. Phil the Bus. Anyway, if you know what I'm talking about. Immigration advocates fear the executive orders Trump issued last week constitute a large-scale attempt to dismantle due process protections. Expedited removal, which is deportation of people without a judicial hearing or legal counsel, typically applies to people detained within 100 miles of the U.S. border. Trump is attempting to extend it throughout the country for anyone who cannot prove to an ICE agent's satisfaction that they have resided in the U.S. for at least 2 years. Mary Meg McCarthy, executive director for the Chicago-based National Immigrant Justice Center, said many of the orders violated U.S. law and the Constitution. Really?
What?
Really?
Enforcing the U.S. law violates the U.S. law? Is that what you said?
That's what she's saying.
Okay.
Trump's rhetoric on familiar cruelty and dehumanization, now paired with the full force of the executive branch and Congress, will unleash profound suffering on our longtime immigrant neighbors and people who have arrived more recently to seek refuge, she said.
I mean, these are people that want to put people in COVID camps for not getting the jab. This is like the people saying this shit.
That's you have to remember that. And I'm going to show you in a minute that the people of Chicago are on Trump's side in this because they've done it right in their face. You know how there's homeless people and they're disinvesting into they closed down 54 schools in Chicago. And then right in their face they give $51 million to illegal immigrants right in their face. So this is to divide workers. This is to divide people so they can't organize against capital. That's what this is about. Other people have other theories that they want to. It's about voting. What I don't know, but I know for sure this is what it's about.
Hey, do you know what they want to do to Russia? Break it up?
They want to break up Russia.
That's the thing they did here. And that's how you do it. And that's why all these countries are bad. That's why China's going to hand us our ass, because they don't let NGOs do this kind of bullshit to them.
So what kind of people are they arresting in Chicago? So here's a child rapist from Thailand in Chicago.
This is a real reversal, isn't it? Usually they're picking up the European sex tourists out of Thailand.
What's your name?
Seda.
Seda what? Do you have a personal last name?
Sam.
Seda Sam?
Yes.
Where are you from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
Where are you born?
Thailand.
You've been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
I've been in the system before.
Yeah.
He said, no, he's never been deported, but he's been in the system before. And there's Dr. Phil. Why is Dr. Phil there? Are they sending him to boot camp?
You're going to start respecting your mother. I'm sending you one of those weird boot camps where they probably molest kids. He's probably got to make up for that boot camp he sent all them kids to.
I mean, he definitely needs a new agent. When your agent says you can't get you a spot on The View anymore, but he has a booking available for arresting pedophiles from Thailand. Come on.
I mean, I will say, I would rather watch the thing that he's booked on than The View.
Me too.
Good job by his agent, but I'm.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with?
Charged with?
Before?
I'm not going to say that. I'm going to talk about lawyer.
Yeah.
Smart.
Are you a citizen?
My mom's a citizen.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You're Dr. Phil. You're Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen.
That looks like the house I grew up in, by the way. And that looks like the tree in front of my house. That can't be my house, could it?
That dude, if Dr. Phil, wait a minute.
He goes, how do you know me? What do you mean? You're Dr. Phil. Everybody knows Dr. Phil. You've been on TV for 30 years.
Is there a possibility that Dr. Phil just showed up with this Thai child molester in front of your boyhood house? Is that a possibility?
Oh, on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. And he's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
So what Holman is saying is that you got local, because it's a sanctuary city, the local police authorities aren't allowed to work with the federal ICE or whatever. They're not allowed to work with the Border Patrol, anybody, to help deport illegal aliens. And consequently, they got these criminals. And we just showed you in another clip.
We all see Scarface
from Boston. We saw you from Boston that they arrested this guy on some sex trafficking or some kind of sex charge, and they had to let him go the next day because it's a sanctuary city. What were you saying about Scarface?
It's all the same as a drug dealer and a people dealer. That's all the same. It's so corrupt, the mafia that runs it, which is real big and real scary, that's why that's allowed. In Scarface, they bought Miami, remember? He came over, they flooded Miami with illegal immigrants, right?
Yeah.
Or Mario Botlev, that Jimmy had open arms, and they welcomed in all the dregs of Cuban prisons. And then there was an insane drug boom, every kind of trafficking boom, and it built the city. So somebody wants that way, and they're telling, we've had the resources to take care of this. How do we have MS-13 here and El Salvador doesn't? El Salvador has no MS-13 problem, but we do? How's that possible?
El Salvador got rid of their gang problem.
Because they're not corrupt. And I saw that guy Bukele talk about it, and he was advised, well, because our economy is so dependent on crime, you got to ease off of it because it'll crash the economy. And he goes, you know what, we'll take the GDP hit, it's fine. And you know what happened, he said? They went up 3 points in GDP.
Yeah.
But they were prepared to take the hit. That's how we are El Salvador before Bukele corrupt at the very least.
Yeah.
So they're going to, all I'm waiting to see is, okay, I like this guy, this ICE guy, because he wants to do his job, and he knows all the horrors that are being allowed that these imbecile actors pretend they don't know about. I want to see if they come out with the whole truth or they try to do like, never tell us the whole truth. Because the whole truth's real bad. It's real bad.
Not really.
Not really?
He said,
I've never been deported.
What was his question? What was it? Let me see what his question was.
Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really.
Not
Kinda,
really.
Maybe.
Not
I'm in
really.
the pervert exchange program from Thailand. There's a guy with his pants pulled up too high who's an American in my place, and I'm staying here with a family.
You ever been charged with sex crimes with a child? Not really. What?
Not really?
I'm not allowed to.
I've never been deported.
Nope.
Huh. Let's take them in process and lock them up.
Got it, sir.
So, Tom Homan says ICE saves children today and goes scorched earth on Governor Pritzker. The governor, well, here, let's listen to what he says.
You know who Pritzker is, right?
Yeah. Governor
His
Pritzker.
family made their fortune.
They made Hyatt hotels.
Oh, they also stole Japanese property during the internment concentration camps.
Oh, no kidding.
They took their shit. That's where their big bulk of their money came from. They're also the one of the main driving forces behind gender affirming care for kids. Isn't that weird that these people that are into that are also into having kids brought in undocumented? Yeah, the Pritzkers, they suck.
So here's what Pritzker is the governor of Illinois. He's that he's the guy who makes Chris Christie look like he's in shape. And he's the one who came out during the Democratic convention and said, "I'm a real billionaire." and everybody cheered. The party of the workers cheered out $1 billion. Here it is. Let's watch this.
Wonder where they go, who picks them up. This is who picks them up. This is who lures them out on the internet, and they disappear, or they get raped, and their life's changed forever. And he shouldn't even be here, but he's doing this. But they don't raise their hand and say, hey, there's somebody that doesn't even have the right to be here that's preying upon our children, and they don't tell you about it.
Exactly. And this governor, Governor Pritzker, and the mayor, they want to vilify the men and women of ICE. ICE saved children today. ICE saved children today. And it makes me angry. Governor Pritzker the other day went on the internet, social media, saying ICE was attacking our elementary school. He's scaring children. He's scaring the neighborhood, putting fear in the community. We're doing the exact opposite. We're saving children. Every sexual predator we arrest means more safe children. So God bless the men and women of ICE. As you've seen today, we're not sweeping neighborhoods. This is a target enforcement operation. We spend a lot of time investigating these people. We know exactly who we're looking for. So it's a target enforcement operation. It's the right thing to do.
Well, let's talk about how methodical this was, because you guys had this man, this monster on the list, and they've been sitting on this guy for 2 or 3 days to try to get where he was and his pattern, and you were actually able to ping his cell phone and get him on the move so he could be picked up on the street, rather than if he got to his dwelling, wherever that is, and got behind a closed door, then he could have sat there and you didn't have the right to go in and get him if he sits behind that door, right?
Not without a criminal arrest warrant. That's exactly the point. He could have been arrested at a county jail, in the safety and security of county jail, by one officer.
Right.
But we spent hundreds of hours to investigate him, try to find out where he is, and we did find him. It takes a whole team for officer safety to arrest him. Right. It's not efficient. We could arrest many more criminals if you let us in the jail. It's a lot harder to find these guys out in the public. These guys don't want to be found. They're in the wind. It takes a lot of investigative work to find them. Let us in the jail. Don't let them hit the street. It saves officers time. It's safer for the community. It's safer for the alien. It's safer for the officer. But spending hundreds of hours of investigation to find this guy when we could have got him in 5 minutes at the Cook County Jail.
It seems crazy. I'm sorry. It seems crazy. You got a guy in jail. He's already a bad enough actor. You had to arrest him. He's already a big enough criminal that the local police had to arrest him, and then they release him instead of giving him to ICE. And then ICE has to do an investigation, spend all those man hours, go to a house. It seems crazy.
What's the argument for that, though? What's the argument for that?
Sanctuary city, baby.
You see AOC talking to Jon Stewart, and Jon Stewart even knows, why would you just keep a known sex offender in here and not hand him over? She's like, well, I don't know all the case. She has no response.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to not know that's a problem. Okay? Which is insane. That's absolutely batshit. But people are mad that they're going to stop. RFK wants to take the poison out of your kid's poison cereal.
I know. So now that they're doing raids, so now that Trump is president, and it seems to me that they are, the majority of it, they're targeting people who are known criminals, and they're not sweeping neighborhoods. And what they should do is that the local police should keep these people in prison who are known sex offenders, who are known criminals, and are also undocumented, aka illegal, here illegally, and then hand them over to the Border Patrol or hand them over to the Immigration Service. But they're not doing that because they're a sanctuary city. They just release them. We've showed you. Hang on. We've showed you video after. I've just showed you video after video of them being released. What do you want to say?
These are the cities that set up snitch hotlines for COVID lockdown violations.
That's right.
They're all over it. Invasive, etc.
Yeah.
All over it for that. But for this, well, we don't know. We don't even know who's in our own jail, and we don't want to know.
And what they're also doing is scaring the hell out of everybody, saying ICE is coming to your school when they're not. And ICE is doing sweeps of neighborhoods. They're not. Just like I predicted, they're targeting criminals.
Also, why
and
would
so,
I give a shit if I'm not here illegally? Why would I be terrified?
And
I'm
so,
terrified that you're here illegally.
So the extent to which the American worker, Wall Street Apes tweeted this out. So now, because the word is out and everybody's scared that the ICE is coming for everybody, they're not showing up to work.
Oh, look, all the jobs.
So
those guys did want their jobs. This is years ago I saw them. We did a pilot for Comedy Central, upstate New York, family-owned construction company. All the work was going away because these companies would hire illegals to do it. They explained it very patiently. Nobody, for some reason, respects that.
I saw a video today. I can't believe I didn't grab it for the show. But there is a bakery in central Illinois, and the guy says there's 3 factories here, and the parking lot's full, and we're at shift change right now, and it's empty. And so now you're not going to be. There's going to be a shortage in bread. There's going to be a shortage of whatever they bake there.
I bet you better start hiring.
Because they're hiring illegal immigrants. Why? Because that's good for business. You could pay them less. They can't organize. They can't form a union because they're not here legally. And so that's a gift to corporations. And the people that they can't bring in illegally, they give an H-1B visa to, just as what Joe Biden did for truck drivers. So now truck driving companies are importing foreign workers to drive trucks because there aren't enough truck drivers in America. There aren't enough talented enough to drive trucks in America. No, it's to drive wages down.
Yeah, well, Jimmy, it's even if you're a company that isn't that big of a scumbag, the government was purposely funding programs to make you do that.
That's right.
You see how much worse that is? That's actively trying to destroy you.
So to the extent at which the American worker has been replaced by cheap illegal migrant labor is shocking. This job site employee is reporting only 8 out of 43 workers showed up for work due to immigration checkpoints and raids. This is where all our jobs have gone, to illegal. So I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that is why, as Bernie Sanders said in 2014, before he got the woke mind virus, that open borders is a billionaire scheme. He called it a Koch brothers scheme. It's to drive wages down and undermine unions.
Because it is. It was a Republican invention, the sanctuary city. They love that idea. And that's why it was a Koch brother. Here, if you're a dumb shit liberal, hold Koch brothers are bad in your head. And now remember that that's their thing they want. Imbeciles.
So here's
you have to qualify this.
So there's the construction site. 8 out of 43 guys showed up for work due to the immigration checkpoints and raids.
Of course. What are people going to not go for the cheaper labor option, especially a company? If I run an NGO, right? Like the Open Society, I'm part of the Good Club with Bill Gates and Oprah, and we're thinking ways to get you down to eating bugs or whatever the hell. That's how you do it. The buses of illegal military-age men coming in, that was a Catholic NGO. Okay, so this isn't just like people sneaking in for a better life. This was on purpose. That's why they're being so fast getting criminals out, because they purposely let them in.
So I want to show you this before we end this. Go to Steph's camera. Okay, or you go to put it on Kurt.
Why? Oh,
it's okay because I have to do something.
No.
Okay, you can come back to me. So Wall Street Apes tweets this out. Illinois resident says, I live next door to a 24/7 bakery factory. Oh, here, I'll just play it for you. So you see this? Okay.
Hey guys, so if y'all think that the people are fear-mongering about food and our communities running out of food and there being a big balloon and there being economic problems, this is in central Illinois. This factory, which is next door to my home, is the Bimbo Bakery factory, and next door to it is 2 more factories, and then across the street is another factory. This parking lot should be full. This factory runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is 5:30.
And that exhaust there is just ventilation.
That's just the ventilation. This would typically
There should
be full.
there should be a huge smoke column somewhere right around here going that way with the production oven.
And if you look at that parking lot, it is empty. This is shift change. It is the middle of shift change. And the entrance to the parking lot is right there. And this is our only street in and out of town to get over there. And as you can see, there are no cars. So this is our bakery, Bimbo Bakery. They make things like the English muffins. So expect there to be a fucking problem when it comes down to our food in the next upcoming months.
Oh no, the slaves aren't there. How will I get my food?
So the same people who scream about raising the minimum wage, and I'm one of those people. I'm all for raising the minimum wage. You know me, I'm a lefty. Because the minimum rate, when you raise the minimum wage, it actually helps the economy. People think it does the opposite. It forces people out of business. It doesn't. It actually has the opposite.
I figured it out, Jimmy, 20 years ago when every time they had this argument and raised it, it was fine. That's when I put it together.
Yeah. Every time they raise the minimum wage, actually, I know the president of Wetzel Pretzels said, yeah, I used to be against it. He goes, but now every time they do it, my business goes up. Yeah, because people have more money in their pockets and it increases. So anyway, it's actually not bad for the economy. So I'm for that. But the same people, so a lot of those same people, not me, a lot of the same people who scream you got to raise the minimum wage also are upset that we don't have enough slave labor. They're like, oh my God, who's going to pick your fruit? Who's going to, remember Ozzy Osbourne's daughter? Who's going to clean your toilets? Who's going to do this? So
she sounded like an Episcopalian lesbian bishop talking to Trump.
Yeah. So you want, Please
don't free the slaves.
So you want people here who are vulnerable to the capitalists. You want them here so they can be exploited. But at the same time, you want to raise the minimum wage. But you're upset that someone's getting rid of the people who are being exploited. Because that's what that is. Why do you think they're hiring only illegal aliens? Because they're being exploited.
If it causes an English muffin shortage, shouldn't that tell you, wow, the scale of the utter corruption and problem is so big, we're not going to have English muffins for a few weeks. That must be a really big problem. I'm glad it's getting taken care of. That guy Bukele did it, and their GDP, which is not even the thing that I would hinge everything on, went up from doing that.
But and this person makes a great point. The argument will always be Americans don't want to do this work. Really? Factory work in a bakery? Construction jobs? Americans don't want to do those jobs? Working in slaughterhouses? Really? Meat packing? They don't want to work there? Really?
How do we build anything in this country before we... All the people got there like, I don't want to do any of the jobs. You mean they want to be paid properly?
So this person says, no, it's that Americans don't want to work for a third of what their grandparents earned in real dollars in their own country. Is that wrong?
Jimmy, I want to just point this out.
That has 3,000 likes.
Do you know how bad things have gotten? Here's the thing that really hit home for me, how bad things got when I was watching the Bill Burr and Billy Pumpkin's brother get together. And I went, my God, back in the day, you could be a guy who has a wife and family in a house and then go get another secret wife and family in another house.
Yes.
And supported by being a traveling musician. That's how far, now no one can have any house.
Right.
You ever hear anybody going to jail for bigamy ever?
Yeah.
My girlfriend never even heard of that term.
Blue collar people having two families, secret. So
like they're CIA, they got 2 families. No one can afford to do that.
Bimbo owns Hostess, Sara Lee, and Entenmann's. So that, remember she said this is Bimbo Bakery? Bimbo owns Hostess, Sara Lee, and Entenmann's as well. How much of the labor force has been illegal immigrants all this time?
Yeah, yeah.
These businesses need to be prosecuted. This is not an accident. They lobby to keep immigration work visas scarce so that they have a cheap and compliant workforce that can't organize.
Okay, Purdue, they paid Purdue to do this, recall, with tax incentives to fire the American workforce and bring in illegals less money. That was incentivized by the government to them. So the way a business views that is, I have to do it, much like the H-1B thing. You have to do it. You cannot do it because it's business now. So the state is doing that on purpose. They're creating perverse incentives for gain of function research, replacing the jobs, all kinds of crazy shit.
So
Killer AI.
I love this is not an accident. They lobby to keep immigration work visas scarce so that they have a cheap and compliant workforce they can compel through fear. Shame on anyone who wants to keep this system in place. Revise the laws. Yes, but do not say we need to support human trafficking in order to preserve our junk food habits.
So the cocaine I did back in the early 2000s was more humane and fair trade than any Twinkies. Is what I'm picking up from this.
So, I'm pro-immigration. I'm pro-immigrant. Nobody wants to kick anybody out of this country who's been here for 20 years and raised a family and provided for their kids. That's not what this is about. This is about in the last few years, they have flooded this country because the labor market got tight and unions started to catch on. Amazon was able to organize a union. People at Starbucks were able to form a union. That's what this is about. They're afraid of American workers getting power. In the middle of the biggest income disparity in the world, Jeff Bezos has a yacht bigger than a football field. So does Mark Zuckerberg. Bigger than a football field. These people who lecture you about climate change have yachts with 4 gigantic diesel engines in them. A yacht. You know, Mark, Jeff Bezos' yacht is so big, it comes with a support yacht. That's a fact. Look it up.
How many immigrants does it hold?
Right. So this idea that these are only jobs Americans will do any job. I worked construction. I worked brickwork. There's very few jobs harder than that. I was in Chicago, 100-degree heat, 90% humidity on top of a building, had to carry buckets of brick and cement up 4 or 5 flights of stairs it was not easy.
Yeah, but they pay you.
But they paid me. And the people I worked with, bricklayers and tuck pointers, they all got paid. They got paid enough to buy a house and have kids. And even some of them, if they worked on the weekends doing side jobs, they could afford a summer home on a lake in Wisconsin. But they worked their ass off every day. I grew up in a time when blue collar workers owned summer homes on a lake in Wisconsin, and they had speedboats, and we'd go up to their house. Regular blue collar people, because they worked every day of their fucking lives. But now that became too expensive. And so the capitalists, the corporations, like, no, we got to. And so that's what this is all about. That's what this is all about. And so I don't know how the same people who scream we got to raise the minimum wage could also scream that, well, we can't get rid of the most vulnerable, exploited labor. We got to have slave labor.
Yeah, someone's going to exploit them. We might as well have Twinkies.
Might as well have Twinkies.
See, here's the thing with the hit to the economy is like, oh, the Twinkies are gone, but American jobs aren't being lost, are they? Those were never American jobs, it turns out.
Right.
So, like, watch that Bukele speech. It's great because they were like, no, you can't just do that. And he said, we'll take the hit just to get rid of the corruption. And everybody seems to be happy with him that I've ever met from El Salvador.
So when he's saying that he's talking about the president of El Salvador. So here, I want to show you. So I want to show you. So, and the news is completely repeating the woke agenda's talking points on this immigration.
It's not even woke.
Now, it's not even woke.
The Great Society, it's called.
Right. It's from corporations who want to exploit labor. And in 2014, Bernie Sanders said that open borders are a Koch brothers scheme, meaning a billionaire corporation scheme to get cheap labor and undercut union workers and then the corporation scares the hell out of those workers so they can't ever demand more wages or better working conditions, and they can't ever organize into a union because they'll report them to ICE and get them kicked out of the country. So that's why they love illegal immigrants to be their workers at places like Sara Lee and Hostess and Entenmann's and construction work and meatpacking places and farms, because they can exploit them. And they can scare them, and they could pay them a lot less. That's what this is about. We finally have a tight labor market in America. Workers are starting to get a little power so they can start to get their fair share of the profits. And we can start to rebuild our middle class. When I was a job, a guy who sold shoes at Sears could have a house and send his kids to college. When I was a kid, a guy who sold lawnmowers at Sears could have. So I'm just saying that there's lots to go around, except workers haven't had a real raise since 1980. And there used to be workers' pay was connected to their productivity. But that stopped in about 1980. So productivity kept going up and wages stayed flat. And so that's why we don't really have a middle class anymore. And people can't afford anything. But millennials can't afford a house. None of them think they can buy a house. So here's the media, Dana Bash, who lied and said Joe Biden wasn't demented, who lied and said the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, who lied and said Russiagate was real, who lied and said the Ukraine war was about what it wasn't about, lied about Syria, now there's a Al-Qaeda guy running Syria and so they just lied about Iraq, lied about Libya, and now they're lying to you about immigration. And here's the new head of immigration, Homan, and he's going to straighten her out on national TV. So let's watch this.
How many deportations do you think that you can carry out this year? Last year, for example, the Biden administration did deport about 270,000 people, which is the most since 2014. I know you said ICE has not been doing its job, but there have been a lot of deportations? What's going to happen coming up?
Turns out not true.
That is not accurate. The Biden administration is hiding the numbers. If you look at those removal numbers, over 80% were Border Patrol apprehensions on the border that were immediately removed. They weren't ICE removals. So if you look at what ICE has done into.
So he mumbles a lot. He likes to put a handful of marbles in his mouth before he goes on television, which is unfortunate.
He's got a small mouth.
But I'm going to tell you what he was saying. What he was saying? What he was saying is that those weren't ICE deportations. Those were people being turned away at the border, which is a lot different. So they're conflating those numbers and saying those are ICE deportations because that's what the Biden administration wanted people to think.
Well, we know it's not true because why are all these illegals here then?
That's right. And he didn't want you to know that he was literally flying in undocumented migrants on airplanes. Hundreds of thousands of them. The Biden administration did that. We reported it on this show.
Hey, LA, did you get your $700 yet?
You get your $700 for your house? Yeah. Here
Morons.
We go. In the United States, under 4 years of President Biden, they have the lowest numbers of removals in the history of the agency.
So under 4 years of President Biden, they had the lowest numbers of removals of illegal immigrants in the history of their agency. Okay, here we go.
Despite a historic illegal crisis on the southern border.
Despite an historic spike in illegal immigrants, they had the lowest numbers ever. Okay.
So they can claim 270,000, 240,000, whatever removals. That's simply not the fact. And under the Trump administration, were there fewer removals? Yes. And why was that? Because we secured the border. We weren't releasing millions of people in the United States to have to go find and remove. So it doesn't matter how many people were deported, it's how many people were released in this country, and millions were released into this country by the Biden administration that were not released by the Trump administration.
I just want to be clear. I'm not obviously getting these numbers out of thin air. They are coming from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. You're saying,
and of course, I never give any scrutiny to anything anybody from the government ever says. I'm never skeptical of it, which is why I told you ivermectin was horse paste instead of a miracle drug for human beings, which is why I told you hydroxychloroquine was fish tank cleaner, except instead of a miracle drug for human beings, which is why I told you the vaccine stopped transmission and contraction, which is why I told you that masks worked, which is why I told you you're a racist if you think the virus came from a Wuhan laboratory instead of a wet market. So all those things, she doesn't question ever. Whatever the government tells her to say, she just says it.
Yeah. Well,
she's a stenographer. And a repeater. She's not a journalist. So she's saying, well, I'm just letting you know where I get these numbers from. And you're not skeptical of those numbers or find out what they really mean. He's telling you what they really mean. What do you want to say?
saying, I just want you to know I'm an Ozempic puppet. I don't I don't pull these out of thin air. It's put inside me by my betters.
What is that stat?
It's loaded into me like a teleprompter.
What? Okay.
That they're giving us false information.
Talking, where do those removals come from?
Did you hear her?
Call my grandma a liar?
Yeah.
They are coming from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection Agency. You're saying that they're giving us false information?
Talking, where do those removals come from? And they're not interior ICE removals. 80% of those removals were arrested by Border Patrol. So ICE didn't make the arrest, Border Patrol did, and they were removed by ICE on the southern border.
Understood.
Okay, understood. I didn't look into those numbers at all. I just took them at face value, and I didn't put them in any context for our audience. I just repeated them, whatever the government said. I didn't have, even though I have, 40 interns working for me and 50 producers, none of us looked into any of this. Just like how Chris Cuomo didn't look into ivermectin. He said we were lied to instead of doing his own Google search on what ivermectin was. Just like all that stuff. Just like that. I just, whatever they said, I just repeat it. It's not it's your job to find out what it actually means and put it in context. But they're not journalists at CNN, which is why they just had to fire a couple of hundred more people, because people know that now. They're not journalists. They're teleprompter chimps.
Yeah.
So there he was. He had to straighten the news person out. Oh, you're supposed to embarrass the government guy, not the other way around. You empty-headed
of embarrassment.
You empty-headed
teleprompter
chimp.
She goes. Are you calling them a liar?
Are you calling them a liar?
That's your journalist instincts.
Yes.
Is to go to gossipy middle school girl mode.
Yes.
That's how you handle it. You don't go, well, why is it they saying a different number? You go, why did they have that number? And then we can learn together. Oh, what are you saying? They're liars. Is this a Trump? Maybe Trump?
You're saying that the U.S. government they're liars? That's exactly what she did. Okay, over to Steph.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Do you have any notes or anything?
Yeah, those are 3 segments.
All right, those are 3 segments, fellas. Make a note of it.
Oh, by the way, come back to me.
Back to Jimmy. So
just so you know, a friend just texted me this. Dylan said that Dana Bash's husband, his name is Jeremy Bash. Guess who he is? He's one of the 51 intelligence experts who told you that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian propaganda. That's who her husband is.
That's not a conflict of interest.
That's who her husband was.
Wait, she's married to a CIA?
Yes.
Wow. Boy, why would I not trust the news?
Why would I not trust them? So that's so just so everybody knows, that's 3 different segments. So there's the first segment of them in Boston and Chicago. The second one is with Dr. Phil. That's his own segment. The third one is the construction worker and the bimbo factory. And then the third segment is him schooling Dana Bash. So that'd be 4. That'd be 4. Misha wanted to show off she could count. I know, she's good at numbers. That'd be 4. Okay, over to Steph.
I have a real quick question, Jimmy. So why didn't America go crazy when Obama had deported over 3 million people?
Well, again, I'd have to look into now. I'd have to look into closer what those numbers are. When they say he deported 3 million, did they turn away 3 million people? By the way, people forget Barack Obama built those cages that they say that the immigrants are in, right? That they were all upset about, that AOC went to the border and cried about in her white pants and white shirt. Stop crying about it during Biden's administration. Isn't that weird? Anyway, so yeah.
So you think pretty much it was because that the media didn't make it a big deal. They didn't fan the fire.
Of course. And now all those numbers are suspect to me. After hearing what he has to say, all those numbers are suspect. Okay, over to Steph.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see here. Kinky says, what happens if you take $100 million from Miriam Adelson, and then you don't commit ethnic cleansing, do your bones end up somewhere outside Vegas? Kiki wants to know. Redacted said Trump blocked both of RFK Jr.'s picks for vaccine safety, then met with Gates for 3 hours. How is he going to keep his base after that and his Stargate mRNA AI BS? Hempcar wants to know. Steve B. Doge announced that they found funding for the secret police and Elon's Ghost H-1B Visa video game character booster without increasing government spending. Kids Corner, Amazon announced it's shutting down all warehouses in Quebec after workers voted to unionize. Quebec subsidized Amazon with tax dollars to be in the province, and this is what they get. Shame. Kids Corner, my_war, a sewer smell in your house can sometimes be attributed to someone eating too much broccoli. Thanks there, plumber man. Kids Corner, I had a similar sewer problem when I lived in a student house. A broken ground pipe caused all the sewer to back up into our laundry room and plumbing. You just brought me back to the PTSD. Sound Chaser, hi all. The deportations are just a big show we've seen before. The illegals who are criminals are a spit in the ocean compared to the total of illegals who are here. It's a campaign promise. My_war, just wondering. Hold on. Just wondering during these roundups, how many times Dr. Phil asks, how's that working out for you? Very good. Thank you, my_war. I am the owl. I live in a county, biggest county in U.S., yet my health insurance is telling me there's no in-network provider for a procedure and that I have to go out of state to get it done or pay $7,000 out of pocket. No kidding.
What I would do is go get it done and then don't pay.
Go get it done, don't pay. Cause03, my son is a Marine stationed in California. He was sent to the southern border a few days before Trump was sworn in as president. Hannah, sir, YouTube wouldn't post. USA is just like Israel, constantly blaming others instead of looking within, realizing it's our own forefathers who messed up and that we need to heal from their damage and gain humility and perspective. Sound Chaser, those jobs suck, Jimmy.
Okay.
They pay shit and they're exploitative. And yes, Americans have wised up. No one who has a choice wants those jobs. Back to Jimmy.